Less stress, more time, more money. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor Deep Dive.
Martin, this is our last episode, I believe, in 2021.
Really? I didn't know that.
Holidays coming up.
Yeah, but we have another Thursday.
We do. I'm out of town.
You were out of town last week.
I know.
So what's up?
I was down on the border.
Down on the
By
border.
the way, I don't know if a wall's needed over there. If you can make it over and survive, man, it's I need to show you a video.
Some rough country.
It is some of the. I mean, you were out. I've never been somewhere so quiet.
And a bunch of redneck Texans down there with shooting courses.
Yeah, I mean, it is a desolate place.
Yeah.
But it was very pretty in its own way. But I mean, there's nothing out there. Went to Big Bend.
Yeah.
Went to Santa Elena Canyon, which is 8
Yeah,
miles.
a lot of people hunt down there. There are sheep and
There's deer.
different.
There's a lot of deer down there.
Well, if you call those deer, they're kind of like chihuahuas.
Chihuahuas.
Little itty bitty deer. You can
That's
put
funny.
one in each pocket and carry them back to camp.
That's great. But yeah, last one. We've done a lot of recording in 2021.
I think we're
Over 100
aren't we?
episodes.
Yeah.
But we
really.
started in 2020, so wrapping it up, man. Any big highlights from this year for you?
Well, one thing I wish you'd ask me that, but you come in here and ask. I got to think about that kind of stuff, you know.
Well, I'll give you mine. I had a baby this year.
Okay. Well, I can't compete with that. Well, there's something. I had a baby 40 years ago. Actually, I didn't. Diane did. 40 years ago in 2 weeks.
There you go.
Going to Idaho for a birthday party.
There you go. 40 years.
On the 30th. Yeah.
Crazy. That's Nick.
You know you're getting old when your kids go on Social Security. Ooh.
That's funny.
He's not on Social Security yet, but he's hitting 40.
Yeah, that's wild. No, it's been a good year. Lots to look forward to in
Yeah, this
22.
is really, I mean, if you turn the news off, it's been a really good year for me and for you, I think, and for really almost all my clients. It's been kind of a record year, trying to separate the angst of the politics from the reality of business.
Yeah, I think business-wise, most contractors are doing fairly well that I speak to. We do marketing for them. A lot of them don't feel like they need a lot of marketing right now, but they do need a lot of organization. Right. There's so much work going on and so much pricing change going on and hiring issues happening. They need to get organized and need to be able to execute on some of those
jumping
things.
Back to marketing, it's a classic that people market, then they get busy and they do, and they quit marketing. Mm-hmm. And then they hit the end of the work and they got nothing to do, so they start marketing again. So you do that sine wave, roller coaster kind of deal, and need to keep the marketing up the whole time.
Yeah, we were talking with a client this week, and he was like, I finally understand what branding is. I finally get it. And this is 2.5 years plus working with him. I said, we're going to help you build a brand, And he's like, I used to think that you meant just like design, like a logo,
right.
And a sign out front, maybe a website. But now he understands, like, people know who we are.
Right.
And they ask for us.
They have an opinion.
They think, oh, that's an Alpha kitchen? I'm talking about Sergio.
Right.
Man, that's... he has a reputation now. It's the image that he portrays. It's what people think about that company. And he's like, I finally get it.
Sentence. You're the guys who.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And how do they answer that question?
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of you, or you're the quality guys. We'll be lucky to get you.
Yep, exactly. And it's not. It's that word of mouth. It doesn't just happen overnight. But it really amplifies your word of mouth in many ways. I think what a lot of people don't realize with marketing, they think it's just advertising or whatever. But really good marketing informs your entire company. It can change. It helps you get to where you want to go. It helps you find the right people. It'll influence what you offer as a company as well. I think what people don't realize, they think of the short term. Hey, if I put this much in for ads, I need to get this much return. And by all means, you're right. But there's a long-term aspect to it too, and that's where the branding comes in. Hey, what's our strategy long-term? Who do we want to be as a company? Who do we want to target as customers? What do we want to offer as services, as products? And, when you're really focused on branding, focused on the long term, you can start to make some of those plays and get better word of mouth referrals, the right word of mouth referrals, and really amplify that. And I think for a lot of contractors, they're so focused on the short term in terms of marketing. Whenever things are going well, we're going to turn that off. But then you lose out on some of the long-term benefits of marketing that can really help you increase your prices. They can help you, branch out and start new divisions, enter new markets, things like that. So, you like to say whenever you're asking a client, do you have a customer referral program, right? Like, yeah, we get referrals all the time. No.
Do you have a program? How do you encourage them?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't see many people that have that.
Almost none. Well, I have one client who's most of their business comes from that, and they do a good job of it. But they're about the only ones who have a serious referral program with intent, and they modify it, and they try this and they try that, and see which ones work.
But what's crazy about that is if you ask those same clients, how do you get your customers?
Yeah.
What do they say?
Yeah, put word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Right.
And so, ultimately, all marketing is word of mouth. Hey, I saw you here. I saw this review. You had a great review with this person, and I looked at them, and 5 stars. I want to use you. Well, you're basing it off of someone else's opinion, which is word of mouth. Almost everything drives back to word of mouth.
Yeah, it's not entirely word of mouth, but it was something this week. I think in this show we're going to talk about things that actually happened with our clients this week. That's pretty fun. It's real stuff and really addressed, and it'll be common. But these guys don't really market; they get referrals, and we're working toward that. They have pretty good website, but we're start talking about making touches on people, and came up with one program and go, oh, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, but it's the most important thing you do. You go back to the people. They get referrals from a constant sources. There are epicenters of referral flow.
Sure.
In other words, their potential clients go there first and then get dispersed. And they haven't been staying in touch with those guys. So what we're doing is quarterly letters, I think it'll be quarterly, that we send back that say, hey, we know that you're putting your reputation on the line by giving us a referral, and we want you to know we take that seriously, and here's the resolution of the 5 people, 10 people, 20 people you sent to us. And so they get some feedback. They may not ever read that, and we're doing it with a letter, not an email, because they don't have that many. But they just see their name, if nothing else.
That brings up a good point. There's not that many, and I think this is a good thing for a lot of contractors that maybe do large commercial projects, industrial projects, where they really only, their target audience isn't thousands of people, but it's dozens, maybe less than that. Marketing doesn't need to be some massive operation. Like, you don't need to be running Google ads. You may not even need a massive website or social media. Those things can be helpful for your image in general, but really you're going to more of an account-based marketing strategy where it's, hey, we've got these 7 target accounts. Let's go call them.
Or let's drive over there.
Let's just drive over there.
Take them some cookies. These guys actually started and they took cookies around this year. These are some pretty highfalutin guys, too. We're not talking about, $100,000 in sales, which there's nothing wrong with that. But these guys do millions, and they loaded up the cookie van.
Yeah.
And went and saw, said, these guys were real appreciative. I go, duh.
Well, and I think that's why relationships also matter. And I think people, especially in today's day and age with phones, with Zoom, relationships really matter in that regard, because you've got to be able to get in front of people. The younger generation needs to understand that. But you've also got to be able to, understand what's going on in someone's life and have a personal relationship with them, not just a business relationship, so that, when it comes time where they do need you, they think of you first,
right.
And they want to take care of you. Those things really go a long way.
I want to pass something on too. When somebody gives you a referral, make damn sure you take care of it. Nothing really pisses me off like when I refer somebody and they don't follow up. I mean, it's more than just Oh, you lost an opportunity. It's like, you made me look bad, man. I don't like that.
Well, and that's where, with those relationships, it's treated like a relationship. Even if it's not a good referral for you, what should you do? Go and help them as much as possible, because your friend or your network, colleague referred someone to you. You want to have a good relationship with them still. Take care of who they're trying to take care of.
That's the point I'm making. When somebody gives you a referral, follow up, even if you're not going to do the work, right? Just follow up and say, hey, this is what I would advise. If I were in your shoes, this is what I would advise, or this is who I would talk to. This isn't really something that we take care of, but if you have questions, let me know. I'm happy to help, Right. That literally happened about 4 weeks ago. I had a client ask me if I knew a certain kind of contractor, and I've had 3 of those in the past that do this work. And I thought about it a second, and I said, no.
Because you didn't trust him to follow up?
No, 100%. I referred them in the past, and they didn't follow up.
Yeah.
And that really, that makes me kind of mad.
Yeah, for sure. We got an email in this week. We don't get this often, but people asked a question. Someone asked us a question via email to the Cash Flow Contractor. If you have questions, send them in the show notes. But we got a question about pricing conundrums, where basically this client does remodeling, or not this client, this question asker.
Yeah.
This contractor does remodeling, and they focus on kitchens, and they have people come into their showroom and say, hey, I'm interested in a kitchen. When we were trying to remodel. And so they go through, they want to know ballpark pricing, right? And so they give them a ballpark price. And they're reluctant to do so, but they give them the ballpark price. Well, then they get further down the process. They design, they do all this work, which takes a lot of time and energy. They put into just doing the design and the quote for them. And throughout that process, the customer adds on, well, let's do this trim, and let's add up with these appliances and this finish, and the bill starts adding up. And then while they're doing this and taking all this time, material prices have changed and increased. So by the time they get to the final quote, that ballpark price is no longer ballpark, and there's that sticker shock. And they say, well, this wasn't the ballpark that we said, and now they've designed this kitchen that they've fallen in love with, but they can't afford. They don't want to take off the trim that they, upgraded to and all that stuff. And so it becomes this difficult conversation, and people might walk away or whatever it is. So the question is how to better deal with that. Like, how do you deal with these pricing conundrums that they run into? I think you and I both have similar advice, but some different points of view. I'd like to hear your point of view on this.
Well, I've had that come up, not this week, last week. A couple of times. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I try to do, the obvious answer is don't do that. Don't give them a ballpark. Well, come on, man. Roughly $150 a linear foot, $400 a foot, whatever. But the correct answer is, well, it depends. And you can get into, you can't do that. You have to have the discipline not to do that. But one of the answers, I have a client in New York who's doing this, and I think it's really appropriate, is he has on his website 3 different groupings. You can have 4. He does closets, and he has a group starting with a picture you can click on and see more pictures. But this is $1,500 to $5,000 range closets. Shows finishes, size, the pulls, different things, hardware, customization, does it have lighting or not lighting. So that's $1,500 to $5,000. And he has another grouping, say $5,000 to $25,000, and shows different sizes, different finishes, different pull, but options. And then he's also got one from like $50,000 to $250,000, because he does that kind of work. And people can go get their own ballpark and just say, go look, here's the range, here are the things that matter. And that takes that off your plate and gives them a lot better idea. And they make their own choices. Yeah. But ballparking, everybody kind of needs, everybody tries to reduce stuff to price per square foot. Mm-hmm. You can do that with 6-inch concrete usually, of flat concrete. Pretty hard to do on a custom remodeling. Custom remodel.
Custom kitchen. It's not, there's so many variations and variables that come into play. When I had a contracting company,
we put in sprinkler irrigation systems.
Yep.
We did houses all the way up to like Walmart's, but we drew everything. We actually designed it and drew it. And so we wanted to qualify quite a little bit before we go out there. And I remember a friend of a friend saw me and said, "Oh, well, I'll let you bid my house." And I said, "Well, I'll let you wash my car." And we always told them at the time, you could easily buy an irrigation system for half of what we sold them for. But we did them right. They were legal. They had permits. Backflow preventers were right, zoned properly, all these things. And we just did them right. And we told people up front, our average irrigation for a house at the time was $3,300, and you can buy them all day for $1,200. And we just told them that, because I didn't need to go out there and spend 5 hours measuring and designing.
If they're not going to move
for
forward.
nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, for somebody who's just, oh, well, that's good info. Oh, I thought it would be $1,000. Well, it's not. Well,
Yeah.
my friend got one. Well, your friend doesn't have a backflow preventer or a permit, or they're improperly zoned.
Yep.
Anyway, a bunch of technical stuff there, but we did them right or we didn't do them, and we did a lot of them. We put in over 3,300.
And I think we've had episodes on this, but with pricing, expectation is everything. Don't give a figure that is inaccurate up front, a ballpark figure if it's not accurate. And if you don't know what their preferences are at the time, don't give them a figure. But I think the idea of giving them ranges is really important, where you can say, hey, here's what this size kitchen looks like, at this level, and at this level. And here's a range, and it's a big range.
And on the pictures, you say, notice there's no crown molding. Notice
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
no
You
can
point out the
lighting.
details.
Notice that these are plain shaker doors. They're not customized. Notice that these poles cost an average of $15, well, less than that. But, point out the things
Pros
so
and
they
cons.
notice them.
Make a pros and cons list
Yeah.
of, hey, this is what we like about this. It's economical, right? It gets the job done. It looks nice. Here's some things we don't like. It's not as sturdy. The drawer slides aren't as nice on the cabinets, or the countertops, might be prone to chipping or to heat or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, give examples, give a range, give pros and cons of each, so that they can make that decision internally. Another thing that you kind of mentioned even with the irrigation, that the design takes time.
Right.
Going out and drawing all this up and coming up with a plan is work, and you should be paid for that work. Now, if that's included into your overall price, that's fine. But if you're going to do the work and then potentially not get paid,
Well, we did a lot of design builds started out doing a lot for apartment complexes, maybe 1,000 units, 5 acres.
Yeah.
And you really need to design that. They won't work if you don't do it right. And we design them and turn them into the guys, and they'd put them out, and somebody else had bid them, so we quit doing that.
Exactly. I mean, that's what you run into, is they can take that design and run away with it. So what I recommend is charge for your design. Say, hey, this is how much it's going to cost us to design this. You can go and take it to any other contractor, and they can work right off of this. If you work with us, that fee is applied to your project.
Right.
And now you've covered yourself, where they're gonna know the exact price, to the quote. This is a quote, not an estimate. After the design, they're also going to get a really good design that they can use anywhere, and then you're covered for work that they could walk away with. That they paid you for.
Right. It takes backbone to do that.
It does.
Competitors are not.
Competitors are not doing that, but at
not.
the same time, how much more peace of mind do I have as a consumer that I'm going to get a better product? I mean, reassuringly expensive is what we say, right?
Yep.
Where, man, I know I'm going to get a good product if I'm working with you
Well,
guys,
if
and I'm going to
they-
be taken care of.
Yeah, if the client cares, but that's all that judgment. I think the best suggestion to come out of the question that we received, we both got it, and it was quite a lengthy email explaining the
It was
problem,
great. It was awesome.
Is to give them a place where they can go get their own ballpark, like
Yep.
the 3 or 5 categories on your website.
Exactly.
What the differences are.
Yeah. And so with this particular person, they're in a good place for this. And I'll tell you why. Because they document. What I mean by that is not every single job probably, but every good job, every ideal customer job. Hey, we remodeled this kitchen and it's exactly the type of project we want more of. They go and they take really good pictures of. They get a good testimonial from the customer. They go and they list out, they have before pictures as well. They list out the things that they solved and all the benefits, the types of hardware that were used in the kitchen and the materials and the trims and, finishes, all that stuff. So that now they, on their website, you can go to their gallery and see all of their ideal jobs. There's probably 20 on there, right? That are, man, I can qualify myself by going to their website. That kitchen is not what my house looks like, and I don't think I can afford that. I can't use this company. That's exactly what I'm looking for, and I've got the budget for it. I can do it.
Just flashed across my mind, but we have a mutual client who's a contractor of sorts, but it was web development stuff, but it's contractor. And he does complex websites that maintain inventory, and you can do e-commerce and get 1 million views a week.
Not the website that a contractor needs, probably.
The one that your nephew designed for $300.
Definitely not.
And anyway, he was getting annoyed by people calling up and taking an hour of his time talking about their project, ask how much, and he would say, I remember at the time, like $5,000. $5,000. My nephew can do that for $300.
Sure.
So I found him a website. He didn't ever actually do this, but I found him a website of web developers, and at the top it said our average website costs $109,551.21, and then the numbers were rolling as if
they're going up.
Yeah, but anyway, they put it right atop the banner. Don't call me if you want a $300 or even a $5,000 website.
Yeah.
This is what we do, and this is who we are. And it ran them off, and it takes courage to do that. But when you do that, it shows confidence, professionalism. You have to be able to deliver.
You have to be able to deliver. But, man, how much more stress does it take off of you? When you talk about less stress, right? That was your last episode? Was that your last episode?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It's stressing me out thinking that it came out today. Man.
How much less stress do you have whenever you're not worried that this person's going to walk away? You're not worried that they're going to be shocked at the price. You're just delaying that stress. If you can just get up front with it, right from the beginning.
Well, it boils down to underpromise and overdeliver. When in their effort, our efforts, all of us have done it, to get work, we subconsciously overpromise and forces us to underdeliver. You imply things, or at least they hear things. You need clarity, and we've talked about having contracts and positioning documents so everything's clear. But that urge to get the job, it's a level of maturity when you move beyond that. Say no.
It is. And I think for most contractors, if you're saying yes more than you're saying no, you're probably not in a good place. That's a generalization, but you should be turning away some work.
Right.
Especially right now when there's so much to be had. I think every contractor is pretty busy right now, especially in residential. Maybe if you're doing industrial stuff, things are on pause a little bit. Some commercial might be on pause, but most residential contractors should be very busy right now. And if they're saying yes to everything, they're probably not very organized. They're probably not charging as much as they should. They're probably a little stressed out as well.
Well, while we're talking about pricing too, another issue that came up this week is surcharges. Just define it. I think people maybe all know what it is, but I define surcharge as an extra line on your quote. It's, in other words, not material, labor, whatever else you've got on there. It's an extra line, and its intent is to recover some of the temporary charges, or what we think are temporary charges, like everybody's listening is familiar with the price increases that have been going on. And we've got one client who is very deliberate about this, and he adds between 8.5% and 15%, depending on what the materials we're talking about, of materials as a line item on his invoice. And the reason behind that is, I think we talked about it before, but you cannot, as being the final step between materials and manufactured goods and the customer, absorb all the changes that have been going on.
No, you can't.
You're the reluctant one. As I said, the Chinese don't have any trouble telling you that plywood went up. They don't have any trouble telling their wholesalers. The wholesalers don't have any trouble telling their distributors, and their distributors don't have any trouble telling you that
So
your
why do you have a
prices
problem
went
with
up.
it?
Yeah, I think one type of board we were talking about the other day as an example was up 50% over the last 18 months. Well, you can't sit out there and because you're reluctant to tell your customer that you're going up in prices, you cannot absorb that on behalf of the consumer.
Right.
You just can't do it. You can't survive. And a lot of people are having trouble with that. And you can take a price increase and we should talk about that here in a minute too. We should take a price increase, but the difference between a price increase and a surcharge is that it implies that it's temporary. May not be, but it implies. And the two things that I've got one client, we're putting in a surcharge for fuel because they deliver their product. The other one, it's on materials, the ones I've worked with on the subject the last 2 weeks. So what is that? How do you implement a surcharge? Well, first of all, you get over the fear. And the fear, if you've got good books and good information and you realize you're not making any money, then you have to decide, I'm going to do what I have to do.
Right.
And once you do it, you find out that you don't get much pushback. At least that's been the experience. And then you figure out what it's got to be. You look at your invoices, but 8.5% to 10% are real common. Or on some delivery charges, it's just $25.
Yeah.
I mean, I already charge for delivery, but surcharge is $25 because fuel costs are up in some places double what they were a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Oklahoma, they're up maybe 50%. So you can't just absorb all that.
Nope.
And so if you're contemplating a surcharge, I think there's a good way to roll it out. It doesn't just show up if you've been bidding things and you've already bid them, then you don't get just to add a surcharge on there unless you got that in your language. But if you're a manufacturing where you have repeat customers or maybe remodelers or you're a remodeler and you work for a designer, then you send out a letter. And I think the letter needs to say that we're forced by circumstances to add a surcharge.
You see that restaurants, like when meat prices go up.
Yeah.
Hey, all items that contain beef are $2 more now.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, it's how you handle it. You set a date in the future, the things that you have in the pipeline right now signed and you're working on, you're pretty well stuck. But you tell them anything coming in after January 1st is going to have this surcharge on it. You send it to everybody. I think it's important that you say we're sending this to all our customers. One of the customers I was talking to about, one of my clients I was talking to about implementing a surcharge, got phone calls from, are you trying to get rich off of me? No. And gave him some examples of he said, I'll send you the invoices if you want to see them, how much materials had gone up. And then the people who called in and said, are you doing this to everybody? In other words, are you just picking us off and your big guys get it? And he goes, nope, it goes to everybody everybody that I do business with. And as I already said, but he put it in the letter, some examples of the cost increases. It doesn't need to be a long, lengthy letter. You're not asking them if it's okay. You're telling them this is what's happening, and you do it. The one client has lost 2 builders. He sells to builders out of a lot. I mean, he didn't want to lose those guys, but quite certain they'll be back because where they went is a lowball guy. And the reason they came to him in the first place was the guy couldn't meet his schedules, the quality wasn't there, didn't follow up, didn't get things done on time.
You got to pay for those things.
So he'll be back. But the result has been, he's been doing that for a while now, and just a tremendous increase in his net margins because net margins meaning net profit, gross margins too. But he was just giving that money away.
Yeah.
And we finally decided you just can't do
do it.
So that's something to think about. If your concrete's gone up, you know what it's gone up in the last year. I don't really know prices for concrete right now. You can do it on labor, but labor's more of a fixture that you might consider including in a price increase as opposed to a surcharge. Surcharge, again, the reader implies, they see, oh, this is likely temporary. Then after you've been doing it for 3 months, you need to send a letter out and say, prices haven't come down or prices have softened. I'm going from an 8% surcharge to a 6%, but you need to be active in it. But if you're profitable, you're operating past break even, every penny of that surcharge goes to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to bring up something else because we just got the report out maybe it was on Monday, the consumer price index has gone up 9%.
That's a lot.
So inflation is 6.8%, but the CPI has gone up 9%. So I'm going, I guess I don't understand.
Yeah, it's going up more than that too.
But here's something that's happening, and I'm contributing to it. I'm telling every client I have, you need to get your prices up because inflation is here, and it's 6%, 6.8% or 9%, but it's here, and you need to do it. And you also can do it because there's nobody alive who doesn't think prices are going up right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Now's the time
as
to do it.
consumers, and they're going to try to beat you down, but they understand that prices are going up. So what does that do? And that's why I'm saying I'm contributing to not necessarily a good thing. That cooks inflation into the books. The other place that's happening is labor unions, like a John Deere, renegotiating their contracts, and they're putting in consumer or inflation adjustments.
Yep.
Cost of living adjustments, that's what I'm thinking. So they're cooking in 3 to 5%.
Yep.
Well, guess what, guys?
Everything is going to
When
go up.
prices are going up and they're tagged to the fact that there is inflation, and union contracts are tagged to the fact that there is inflation, you're cooking inflation in. And doesn't matter whether I'm concerned or not, but I lived through inflation in the 70s, and it is a bad, bad thing.
That's a really great thing to talk about. What was it like in the 70s? Because I have zero idea. I mean, I have an idea of what it could look like right now, but
I mean, the conversations were kind of like today. I was running grain elevators at the time, and the farmers would come in and they said, "This shaft cost me $150 2 years ago. It was $1,000."
Was it that much, the inflation?
Not systemically. I mean, it got up
Just
to
in that area.
12-15% routinely, but you didn't know what things were going to cost, and they even put in price controls. Nixon put in price controls. So they went out, tells you how much you can charge, right? From the United States government. So what ways guys got around that, there's a thing called augers, which is a screw conveyor. People know what augers are. And I'd buy a 10-foot section because we had lots of it. And I'm just throwing out numbers, but it was like $35. Price controls go in, I call my supplier and he goes, $120. I go, 120 would be 500 now, by the way. But I said, "What do you mean $120? And he said, "Well, that's our catalog price," because they had to publish a price under price controls and they couldn't change it. He said, "But I'll give you a discount. It's $50. So you didn't know anything. That my
Gotcha.
mortgage,
So they would have to publish their price. So they would go ahead and publish it at a ridiculous amount.
Right.
And then
some
discount
did,
it.
some didn't. And one of the bad things about inflation was people who were in unions had cost of living adjustments baked into their contract, just like it's going on right now. So union guys, like working for John Deere or Caterpillar or something, Pittsburgh Plate and Glass, but union people got their cost of living increases. Okay, so things marched along and they were relatively okay. If you're sitting out here, either as a contractor who's reluctant to raise your prices, or an employee working at the grocery store or a local retailer, you didn't keep up. And so the disparity between who benefited and who didn't was just terrible. People made all kinds of investments, because what inflation really is an increase in the money supply without an increase in goods and services. And so they had this money supply just kept going up because of inflation, but there weren't commensurate things to buy with it. So prices going up, you didn't know. Well, I'll give you an example. My first house, which cost $25,000, by the way, it's a pretty nice house. It's $25,000, but my mortgage was 9.5%. That was my mortgage interest rate, and we were thrilled to get that, because shortly after that,
it went to like 18.
I didn't ever know about an 18, but into the 15.
I know my mother-in-law was selling houses in Dallas, and she was telling people, you probably want to lock in at this 18% interest rate because it's about to come up, and they were doing it.
And they had these people couldn't afford it, so they had adjustable rate mortgages. All you had to pay was a fixed amount every month, and if the interest was more than that, so let's say you had to pay $1,000 a month. Well, if the interest rate, they would adjust the rate, went to where it was $1,100 was just the interest. You not only didn't pay down your principal, the interest added to what you owed. So you could buy a house, pay for it for 10 years, and owe more than you paid for it.
That's wild.
Yeah, just insane. And our operating line, I was running grain elevators, as I said, we borrowed a lot of money to buy corn. And the operating line, I remember 22%. 22 freaking percent. Yeah, I mean, it was insane.
And money is just so much cheaper right now than it used to be.
Well, we're not really talking about inflation. Maybe we are. But I wrote an article on it called "What is Money?" Matter of fact, it might come out next week. But money is a token of effort. Okay, it represents effort.
Yeah.
And the problem with inflation is that it devalues the token. In other words, I do some work for you, and you give me a token, $1.
Yeah.
And it represents what it was reasonable for my hour of time or 20 hours of time or whatever I put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be confident that that dollar is redeemable for goods and services equal to the time I put in, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is when you increase the money, let me use seashells because I did it in that. Money used to be seashells.
Yeah.
I mean, way, 5,000 BC. Well, seashells were hard to come by, and people were willing to accept a seashell in exchange for an axe or for some effort, or give them a deer or something like that, because seashells were hard to come by, and they held their value. Well, if I found a beach and I could scoop up seashells by the bucketful, I'm going to go over there and outbid you for that axe, right? Because there's all this money out there without any that was created or achieved without any effort, because I just went and picked them up. Well, that's exactly what's happening right now. I've lost track. We just added another $1.7 trillion on this infrastructure bill. That's kind of free money, but I don't know, $4 trillion went into the economy for
it's crazy.
Everything from
it's so much
from
money.
Unemployment and PPP and EIDL. Now that's supposed to be paid back, but there's all this money floating around. That's exactly as if I found a beach with seashells and just came in and outbid you for everything because they didn't cost me any effort.
Exactly.
So
it's crazy.
I don't know if that's a very good discussion of inflation, but
it's
a very bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's happening.
It's happening.
And it's getting cooked in. And
you've got to be able to change your prices.
You can plan on it.
I want to go back to what you had said about adding that surcharge, because I think it's more than just an action. It's more of an identity change, and I think this even honestly goes back to our pricing conundrums. It goes back to, branding. We were talking about that a little bit, but it's a shift in your identity, not just in your actions. When you decide that, hey, I'm gonna add this surcharge, you change who you are a little bit. Hey, I'm the type of business owner that, makes sure that I'm getting my profit, that I'm not just passing the buck, and I think that's a really important thing, and it's a vote of confidence in yourself, but also for other people, because when they see you do that, maybe they are going to go away like a couple of those builders did for your client, but they're probably going to be back because you charged that because you had to, and you charged it because you're worth it.
Right.
You charge it because you show up on time. You charge it because you bill on time. You charge it because you deliver on time, and you're easy to work with. You've got good customer service, and you're a person of your word, and I think that's something that really says a lot, that once you do start to change that identity and not only charge for those things, but deliver on those things, that's your brand. That's when people start to recognize you as a different type of company, the company that they want to work with, that they can trust, that they know that if they pay that extra lump sum that they're not going to pay to the guy that does it for 15, 20% less, they're actually going to get what they need when they need it. And they can count on you. And that's your branding. That's what you want people to expect from you is, hey, we are a little bit higher, but we're professionals and we deliver quality.
And it's your internal branding too. That confidence that comes when you finally do it. I don't know how many people, it's something I work on and always have, getting your prices up. Mm-hmm. And the exercises of doing that is, yes, you get more money, but the reason I do it is because of a change in you.
Yep.
Because I've heard every excuse in the world. The market won't bear it. I know that so-and-so bid this job for less. I can't charge her because she sends me a lot of referrals and all this. Well, that's all pretty much your own head trash. And when you do take reasonable price increases, I mean, you can't, I actually had a client who went way overboard. And we used him ourselves. Got him to get his prices up, but he went up about 300% over the market. And I said, hey, guy, there's a stop. I mean, more power to you. If it works, go charge it. But he charged it to us, and my wife went absolutely ballistic. And I looked at it, and I said, oh, my God, it was pretty egregious.
Yeah.
And so when I say reasonable price increases, 10%, or understanding what you have to break even and make a target profit, which we've done an episode on intentional bidding, hadn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And where you know that this is what I have to have. It's not a choice. It's not maybe I can keep the money. Maybe I can find a way to do it cheaper or something. This is what I have to have. If everything goes right, this is what I have to have. Mm-hmm. And so you're changing your mental, your
thinking,
your internal opinion of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. To be able to do some of this stuff, I know you were talking about, you got to be able to measure to manage this week with some of your clients. And I think it's no different with this. If you're not measuring your books, if you're not measuring your capacity, all those kinds of things, you're not going to know if you need to be adding a surcharge. You're not going to know how your crew's doing. Yeah. If jobs are getting done on time, those kinds of things. You got to be able to measure those things.
That was our podcast last week on stress.
Yeah.
And like I always do, I bring it back to books. I say a lot of stress. Matter of fact, I'm happy to say most stress. There are other reasons, people and supply chains and difficult bankers or whatever. Mm-hmm. But most stress is due to lack of good information. That's what that was about. And good information, you never have perfect information. By the time you have perfect information, the opportunity's gone, because you know what the stock market's going to be last Friday. That's perfect information. I know what it was, but now the opportunity's gone. But the information to make good judgments is imperative. And one of the main reasons is it shows you what you have to do. Mm-hmm. It's a pipe dream to think that, if I sold $1 million job, well, my costs on paper were $950,000, and we're going to screw up more than $50,000. Plus, that didn't pay my overhead, right?
Yeah.
So you have to know those things, and then there will come a day. I referred to it in the past. Jim Rohn calls it disgust, which is a negative word, but can have a positive connotation. And that I'm disgusted. I'm sick of this.
I'm done.
I'm tired. I'm either going to fix this or I'm going to quit.
Yep.
And when you reach that point, a surcharge might be one of those things. You reach that point, I'm doing it.
Yep.
I am doing it. And I'm going to face my fears. And it just always happens that your fears are unjustified.
Yeah.
I say always. Somebody can find an example where they tried something, they thought something bad would happen, and it did. But generally, they're your own head trash. You got to get out of your way.
Absolutely. So, I think for so much, I mean, the measuring things brings clarity.
Yeah. And
clarity is what will reduce stress. Yeah. It's the uncertainty of things that makes it, that brings on anxiety, that brings on uncertainty and just worry. Anxiousness as a business owner is pretty high. Am I going to be able to pay payroll? Am I going to be able to, deliver on time for this client or this customer? Our price is going to go up. And, how much am I making? There's so many questions that you have as a small business owner and as a contractor. And if you can get clarity on some of those things that are current, but also moving forward, it allows you to feel less stress. And if you start measuring things, measuring your books, measuring your spending. You can measure
your stress. I got one client, we measure his stress on a scale of 1 to 10.
There you go.
And over a period of weeks and months, he just tells me what he thinks. And over weeks, and actually we do it the other way. It says how good he feels. 10 is fantastic, and 1 is suicidal. And not that bad, but anyway, you can just write that number down and go back and go, wow, it oscillates. Find things out. But while we're talking about information, there's something else that came up last week, and really happy at the way we worked it out. But with almost everybody I work with, scheduling is a big issue.
Yeah.
And some people have pretty sophisticated ways to schedule. I would kind of say most don't, right? And so by scheduling, what I mean is...
This for a GC or for a sub?
This is for a GC.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be.
Sure.
But it's for a GC. I've got a guy who's been selling a lot of stuff, and it's starting to kind of back up on him. And he's got certain crews that can do certain things. Let's think somebody who digs pools, or a framing crew.
Sure.
Or somebody, a trade like that. And so he's got 6 winter jobs sold, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
Because it's about $500,000 worth of work, and last year he had about 50,000. So I mean, he went after it, got it done, and now we're sitting. Literally, it's behind you on the board there. We started working it out. He said, "Man, it's driving me crazy. I'm driving around. I got to be here, got to be there." So you can buy software. I'm trying to give somebody could do this afternoon. You can buy software and figure it out, and it's pretty sophisticated. And a lot of times, I like simple. And so what we did with this guy was we used an Excel spreadsheet. Okay,
Excel
column
can
on the
solve a
left
lot of
are
problems.
the jobs. Column A, just the job 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. The columns going across. In other words, the rows in the first column are jobs.
Yep.
Smith, Jones, Johnson. The columns going across are weeks. You can do days, but we're doing weeks. And so he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 categorized grouping.
Yep.
Like grade work for a builder, slab, maybe it's slab and grade work, and then framing, and then wiring and drying in, but however you want to grump it out. But where it required different crews. So we went across on job 1 and said, I'm going to do the first step in 3 weeks. So we take the crew that does slab and grade work, and we color it red, and we put it in 3 weeks. Hard to describe a little bit, I guess.
No, I'm following.
But the second thing has to be 3 weeks later is plumbing and concrete. Well, the slab's already in, but framing, right? So he goes across, and the amount of time, this is how, if it goes the way I think, I will do this job. Stage 1 is this week.
Yeah.
And he goes across. And by framing crew being red and roofers being green,
you can color code the trades.
So then he goes to the next guy. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to start in 2 weeks. Oops, can't, because my framing crew's already. Well, you don't start with framing, but so anyway, he had all his jobs, and he saw where there were conflicts, where he had 2 crews on the same job at the same time. So he moved them around and adjusted them, and now he's got a schedule. Okay, and he can look at it and see it in one glance, without having to log into anything. You can just look at it and see that. So that helped him get organized, and he did all kinds of things. He started thinking, well, that's 2 weeks between this and that. It doesn't have to be. He started playing with it, and so he literally has a schedule.
Yeah.
The next subject that came up was he's getting deposits on these things, right? And he also has to pay people. So we took that same sheet, and I guess we can put this in the show notes if somebody wants to see it, or you're welcome to schedule a call, and we'll talk about it and do it on a Zoom call. But
schedule the deposits at the times that they need to be
he
there.
said, when am I going to get that deposit? Well, I'm not pouring concrete until I have this deposit.
Yep.
Right.
You're able to
or
set
day
milestones.
1. So we're totaling up. And then what's he got to spend? Well, 1 week after he does the slab, he's got to pay the guys for a slab. How much? So we were able to go across, and because that was his other thing. He goes, man, I got all this money, but I don't have any, right? Which we've heard that before. He said, I'm really worried that I'm getting deposits for this job, and I'm using it to pay the last job. And
Probably
that's where you don't want to be, right?
You don't want to be there, but
so we've got to schedule this, and you've got to know what you have to do.
Yeah.
So it was really easy, because he knows when he gets payments at certain stages of the jobs. And I've got that with a number of customers. They get paid at this point, right?
Yep.
So that's when the money's coming in. When does it have to go out? Maybe it goes out the same day. We'll put it in the same day.
Yeah.
But at the end of every week, you see a cash balance that you should have. And then below that, you can say, well, it's not just paying subcontractors. I have to pay my office, so you can play with it. But
Well-
those two things we did, total of 2 hours.
Well, and it's super valuable, and I think that's, going back to, we said documenting earlier, taking photos of things. Document how jobs are going, how long they take, how long processes take, so that you can do these types of exercises very easily and accurately. And then, in my opinion, and maybe disagree, get the software. I know it might be a little bit more, it's not as simple, quote unquote, but it can also work for you rather than you having to work for it if you do it the right way. Set it up so that it works for you.
Well, my point with all these guys, I agree with you. Get the sophisticated software, but get started. Don't
wait on it.
Sit there and
Don't
wait,
on it.
or don't buy it, and you can't possibly. It's going to take you 6 months to figure out how to use it.
The software is a tool.
Right.
It's not going to be a magic pill that you swallow and you lose 100 pounds. No, you're going to have to do the work, but it can make the work a lot easier, and it can compound for you. It's a multiplier. You're doing addition over here with Excel or with paper. This is calculus, and it's going to be able to solve the problems a lot faster.
Well, the thing about the softwares too, if they're codifying or streamlining something you're already doing, it's a lot easier than getting a ERP, Enterprise Resource Program, that manages everything. And they tell you, well, you want this to talk to this, and you go, okay, but I don't really know why, and also I don't know how, and I don't know where the reports are. So my point is, get started. Those two things, scheduling and cash flow management, there are some really simple things you can do this afternoon that will change your life, because you can just look and say, hey, it's not possible. I can't tell them because I can't be in two places at the same time. And also, if it rains, you can take the whole thing and move it over a week.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, man, we've covered quite a bit today. We talked about the pricing conundrums that we got question from in the email. Send us some questions if you have any, guys. We talked about word of mouth referrals a little bit. We talked about branding. We talked about documenting things so that you can brand and do other stuff. Talked about surcharges, not taking on the expense that everyone else is passing on to you, but making sure that you're charging for what you're doing and what you're paying for. Talked about scheduling. Talked about identity change a little bit. And lots of little things in between there. Inflation was a big topic, which we'll see how that turns out. But lots happening. It's been a great year though, and we've enjoyed the Cash Flow Contractor this year. Thankful for everybody listening. If you've enjoyed this, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if that's where you listen. Or honestly, just send us an email and say, hey, I'm enjoying the show. Or give us a call. It means a lot to us.
Yeah, and please be aware. I mean, right now, call us.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't cost anything, and we get good ideas, and maybe we can help or refine some of these points we make. I want to throw out, I really kind of enjoy doing this. We'll do deep dives. We've got more of those coming along. But everything we're talked about today happened to us this week.
It's real life stuff.
With us working with clients. And a couple that we won't get to because they're a little bit different, and I think we're running up on time. But split duties between partners.
That's a whole episode.
That's a whole episode.
Let's do a deep dive on that.
Yeah, it's a major problem. I mean, when it's done properly, it's a miracle, and that happened. Well, I've got some clients who do that really, really well, and they're just walking around like, how lucky are we? And I said, well, it's not luck, guys. You're doing it right. Now, maybe it's lucky that you're predisposed to do that, but it's not luck. Another thing that's come up is lumpy production. Okay, so maybe you don't even know what I'm talking about, but when you can do things really well and really fast, and then as part of the project, but the other stuff is slower.
Yeah.
I had somebody who is so good at one area of the business that they have people standing around waiting for the other parts to catch up. And one suggestion was, well, why don't we fire them? That's your best person.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how to deal with lumpy production, people who are real good and get their work done and wind up sitting around. So anyway, there are all kinds of
great topics that come up regularly.
All I have to do is easy to prepare for these because I just look at my calendar and go, what were we worried about last year?
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you all. We hope you have a wonderful Christmas, wonderful New Year. if you're listening to this 6 months after it released,
Yeah,
hope that you're
happy
enjoying
summer.
2022.
Yeah, it's like Ted Lasso put that Christmas episode in August.
Yeah, it was a good episode, though.
It was, but what? Anyway,
All right. Well, see you next time. I'll see you in 2022.
okay.
Thanks for listening to The Cashflow Contractor. Check out our website in the show notes or visit thecashflowcontractor.com.